For razors, if you buy a sharpening stone, a razor hone, it might come with a base stone, and they will supply you with a piece of nagara, which is a slurry type stone. It could be from Mikawa, which would give you a homogeneous type of sedimentary stone, or you could be from one of the Honyama mines in Kyoto, and they would be making up or supplying you with a tomonagura, which is a similar stone to the base stone, but dissimilar just enough so that they're compatible and they're not just rubbing one hard stone against another hard stone. So the idea is to match up a tomonagura that is compatible with your base stone. The Mikawa nagara are usually softer to begin with, so there's no problem with raising a slurry. There are other mine structures that provide slurry stones too, and they can be soft enough to provide a slurry. But the grit quality might not be up top notch as far as matching with honing razors. It could be just fine for chisels or knives or whatever, but for razors it's really critical. So I like to supply my users with a tomonagura, which is a tomo stone. Tomo is a matching stone from a similar mine. They can be in different sizes and configurations depending on what size your base stone is. For a little handheld stone, you might want, or you might be supplied with a smaller nagara. Or if you have a larger stone, you could have even something like this that's a full oversize. So the idea is when you add water to your base stone and then you start rubbing with a tomonagura, there's going to be a vacuum created between the two stones, and they sort of get stuck together. With most tomonagura, you got to be careful because these are sediment stones and they do come in layers. That's the way that they were formed in nature, and there are different layers in these stones that usually run this way. The layers are built up one layer at a time to make a mass of a stone. And so that's perpendicular to the surface of the stone. When you have a little bit softer Honyama stones, like this one, this is the top surface, this is the side. So the layering, you can see there's a colored line there. They're built up like this. If you make a tomonagura from this type of softer stone, the layering components, the clay components that hold together the binders, are softer, and they can become separated if you're not careful. For instance, if you made a tomonagura from this type stone, it's from Narutaki, you'd end up with something that looked similar to this. And you may be able to see the layering in this stone. It's stacked up on top of like that. So the idea is to create a tomonagura that the tomo surface that is rubbing on the base stone is from the side of the stone. So instead of having the layering, this would be the sides of the stone, this would be the back of the stone, this would be the front. Instead of having the skin or the back side of the stone in this case, if we were to make a tomonagura out of this, you can see there's a similar type kawa skin. The idea is to cut the tomonagura so that you're actually dealing with a side component or a side surface of the stone. You got the kawa on the back, but then where you actually do the rubbing for your tomo action, it's on side grain. So therefore, when you do that, it's going to be less likely for a delamination to occur. If the surfacing was like back to front, and you have that suction, and you try to lift the stone or the tomo off the base stone, sometimes the tomo will split down the sediment lines. So the idea is to make the tomo stone stand on its side like this for rubbing. And then the lamination lines don't come into play because they're running north and south, up and down, against or opposed to the surface of the base stone. So if you inadvertently lift off the tomo stone, there's less likely that there's going to be any delamination, which would be running this way, not this way. So I make up these tomonagura, so that we're actually rubbing the tomo action on the end grain of the original Honyama stone. So I would actually be rubbing like this. And I made this one up just like that so that we're rubbing on the side of the stone rather than on the back or the front. And this way the lamination lines are not threatened at all. But I always recommend that when you do use a tomonagura and you're done, that you slide the tomo off the stone. Don't try to start lifting it up. Even if you have the lamination line running north and south, still it's a good practice to slip the stone off, the tomo off the base stone, instead of trying to lift it off. There are plenty of people who have had a really nice tomonagura stone and they've tried to lift it off and they end up with two pieces. So that's what I'm suggesting, that you form your tomo, or if you buy them from someone who hasn't done it for you, form your tomo so that you're rubbing on the side grain, or if you bought one that is set up so that you're rubbing on the end grain or the top or the back grain, that you flip it over, make your suction relief line there, so that you're always able to rub your base stone with the end grain of your tomo. And then, of course, slide your tomo off the edge of the blade, or the edge of the stone. With the Aichi Mikawa Nagura, you don't have to worry about things like that, because the consistency of the tomo, or of the nagura, is so pulpy that there aren't really the lamination lines, the sediment lines, they're not so distinct. So you have less likelihood of delamination. So that's just one thing to look for, or to start doing when you do have a tomonagura stone.